just a few more seconds, y'all. Had some issues with the stream. Wasn't sending it to YouTube for some reason. Give me a second while he goes there. Alright everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of the Crowdsourced Politics News Roundup. I'm your host and moderator, Cypher here. And today we are going to talk about a ton of different topics covering the news that was of the last week or so. So we're going to cover Afghanistan, we're going to cover Afghanistan extensively, to be honest. We're going to also cover the OnlyFans thing that's coming around and talk about what we think about that, or what I think about that, and some other stuff. But I'll give it a few more seconds here or so for people to trickle in, and then we can get started. There we go. Oh, I fixed that too, but that's all right. So, what's new in my world? Well, I've been heavily working the past couple of weeks doing stuff for data and trying to understand some things for work. I also celebrated my 1-year anniversary with my lovely wife, who is out visiting family right now. So she is not here, but I love her and she is great. And our little get together that we had for our anniversary was fantastic. Had a lovely time with friends, all of us vaccinated, of course, and it was just a good time to get to see everybody after, you know, a year of the pandemic or what have you. Also visited my family in Indiana, and that went better than I expected. So yeah, there's what's going on with me. I'm trying to stay out of the drama as much as possible that's going on Twitter and politics and all that stuff that's been going on the last 48 hours or so. It's been rough. I just it's so easy to accidentally step in shit, and yeah, it's bad. So I'm just going to try to ignore that tonight and just talk about the news, all right? Hopefully that's cool with everybody. All right, so let's go ahead and get started today. I'm overpowering my mic, so I'm going to turn that down a bit. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, Afghanistan, it's the shit show you know and love. 20 years of it going strong, and then Biden pulls out following Trump's lead, kind of, sort of. Biden didn't want to continue the war in Afghanistan. In 2009, he actually fought against the troop surge that Obama had actually pushed for, and but he fell on deaf ears, and you know he wanted us to get out, just like a lot of people on the left and a lot of people on the right wanted us to leave Afghanistan, and now we're dealing with the fallout of that. So one of the things that we saw over the last week, and I'm sure everybody's talked about this to death, but I'm going to talk about it anyways because it's still ongoing, is that the Kabul government crumbled, just absolutely crumbled. Pretty much didn't put up a fight at all. And now new information's trickling in about why that might have been the case. So there's a couple of things that's going on with it, right? In Afghanistan, when Biden actually said that he was going to follow Trump's commitment with the Taliban to get out of Afghanistan, some of the government officials, the corrupt government officials for the Kabul government, decided it was time to get the fuck out and took as much money as possible in order to make their exit and still have that good cushion to live out their days outside of Afghanistan, being, I don't know, opposition abroad, or like, I don't know, just rich and safe from the Taliban. And that came with not paying soldiers that were fighting for the Afghan government for months. We're looking at anywhere between 2 and 4 months that soldiers that were fighting in Afghanistan were not paid. That's problem number one. Problem number two that we have just learned this week about this is that apparently the Afghan government and the Taliban reached an agreement that if there was surrenders, that they would actually come together and form kind of a coalition government, so to speak. And a lot of the people who surrendered to the leaders and stuff feel betrayed by the government, and that sort of stuff. So it seems that there was, like I said, there was the two issues, and it seems like really it falls on the Afghan government for that, but the American government had its own problems. So the American government thought that we had 5 months, roughly, give or take, to before Kabul fell, or before there was a coalition government formed, or what have you. They thought there was 5 months. So that's why they got everybody out when they did, and then had to, infill back into Afghanistan over the past week in order to extricate American civilians, Afghan translators and their families, and anybody else that wanted, that potentially, not anybody, but a lot of people that wanted to leave Afghanistan as well. And so that's why we have roughly 5,000 or so soldiers in and around the Kabul airport, providing support and protection for those fleeing the country. Now, it does appear that the Taliban is allowing foreigners free access out of Kabul. It does appear that is the case. There have been very few reports of any fighting that has been going on in the country, and those reports are between loyal Afghan government loyal forces and the Taliban, or anti-Taliban forces and the Taliban. We'll just say that because there's probably going to be people trying to vie for power there as well. And but the Taliban itself does appear to be allowing U.S. and foreigners, U.S. and foreigners, to get out of the country. What they haven't been allowing, at least to a certain extent, despite the fact that they said they would, are Afghanis being let out of the country, especially women. There has been reports that the Taliban have taken papers from Afghan nationals and ripped them up. So any kind of paper that would show that an Afghan person was given a visa or had some sort of other document to be let to get out of the country and let into another one, some of those documents have been ripped up. But, and this is a big but, this is a big but because there's a lot of complications going on here, is that it seems that the Taliban political class and the Taliban ground fighters are disagreeing on how much that should happen. So that is pretty much everything that's rounded up there for Afghanistan, but there's a whole host of other stuff that we're going to talk about. And to talk about some of that stuff, we're going to read an article, or maybe more, about it. Before I get into that, I want to make my own opinion known about what I believe is not only what should be done, but what the best outcome that I think can happen. So, as I said on Prime Kai's panel, I want to say it was Tuesday. It was either Monday or Tuesday when he had the panel about Afghanistan, and then also had the open panel about Afghanistan, is that I do believe that we should get as many people out of Afghanistan as possible. And that out of possible is doing a very heavy lift. I'm not going to lie. But we do have a obligation to the people that helped us fight the Taliban, to find Al-Qaeda members, to find and kill or capture terrorists. We have an obligation to them to get them out safely in order for them to continue their lives and for the families to prosper. 100% full stop. There's nowhere else there. What I think is the most likely best outcome, and this doesn't mean it's the most likely outcome, but the most likely best outcome that we can expect, is for a very minor, kinder, gentler Taliban. And if you're in the United States, you know that Republicans have sometimes been called the American Taliban, especially between very fundamentalist Christians in the US. And I think if the Taliban moves more towards the Republican position on some of these things, the actual Republican position, then that is probably about the best we can hope for right now, as of right now. So by that, I mean women being allowed to get educated, but not necessarily hold public office. Women being allowed to work, but not necessarily in every single kind of job. Women being able to be more free and not have to always have a male guardian around. Kind of, I guess, would be a good way to say it, moving towards Saudi Arabia, where Saudi Arabia is moving towards. Being able to drive, that sort of thing. Maybe Qatar, a little more liberal, but it's still very much going to be an Islamic state. So very, very much fundamentalist, all-encompassing moral doctrine, political doctrine, with the Taliban in control of the country. Now, there are things within Islam that allow for some sort of... Oh, thanks for the follow. For gatherers, let me put the alert box on. There you go. Hold on, let me replay that for you because I didn't have the alert box on. There you go. Thanks for gatherers. Thank you for following. Appreciate it. But what we can expect to see is like I said, is a kinder, gentler Taliban more towards Qatar or Saudi Arabia. That means very limited women's rights, but more women's rights than what existed under Taliban rule back in like 94 to 99. One other thing that we can expect is for the economic deals that happened between the Afghan government and other governments to continue. And as at least from a rhetorical perspective, the Taliban has been kind of conciliatory or at least tactful when even talking about US. So it's possible that they keep their word. Possible, not likely. Now this is the intel thing coming out of me. It's possible, but not necessarily likely. The more likely kind of outcome here, and this is what I think is more than likely going to happen, is what we'll see is along the lines of Taliban 2.0, and it's still going to very much be a kind of a brutal it's going to be kind of a brutal regime, but less insular. And by that, I mean, it's still going to want to get that money. It's going to want to get that paper. And so there will be things like business deals being done, like I said, with China and other countries that will recognize the Taliban government. Maybe some more openness to working with Iran, Russia, and that sort of thing, while the U.S. is told to get the fuck out and stay the fuck out. Same thing with the rest of the West. I think that's more than likely what's going to happen. But it is possible. Don't entirely discount it. And we'll see we'll see a more than anybody else would expect possibility. I would say around it's pretty high, around 20 to 30% possibility actually. It all depends on what happens between now and the next 2 months in terms of civil war, if any civil war happens, and how much the Taliban wants to be able to actually maintain order and be a more globally connected Afghanistan, how much they want that. So be on the lookout for that. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and read an article or two. I didn't want it to do that transition. Let me go ahead and do the fade for now. So here we go. The shocking speed of which the Taliban advanced official timeline. U.S. intelligence warned on August 10th it would take 30 to 90 days for the Afghan government in Kabul to collapse. The capital fell in 5 days. So this is from the Washington Post. This is a really good article. I want to, because it tells about the timeline exactly and what exactly happened and what went wrong. So I think it's good to share with y'all. Slowly, 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 and then seemingly all at once. Sorry, I need to zoom in. Let me see how that looks for y'all. Can y'all see that? Yeah. All right, so we're going to do a little slowly, slowly. Then seemingly all at once. Just 4 months after President Biden announced he would withdraw the United States from Afghanistan, the Taliban has taken control of Kabul, almost 20 years since the group was ousted from power by NATO forces. Few anticipated it would happen this fast. While there were warnings of Taliban resurgence should the U.S. military withdraw, the past week has has seen the group make stunning territorial gains, amassing control of the country with the seizure of one provincial capital after another, and then finally Kabul, in a sweeping surge over the last 9 days. The Afghan army, largely trained by the U.S. forces, but addled by exhaustion and corruption. Now, this is a very key point. Like I said, they weren't getting paid. They didn't have the ability to fix planes. They weren't getting equipment. Some posts were actually out of bullets, so they were just standing there like security guards at the mall. It was bad. It was really bad. Was able to hold the group back, and in many cases walked away without firing a single shot. Here's how the situation unfolded, starting with Biden's announcement in April. April 14th. Biden, who inherited a deal struck by the Trump administration and the Taliban that the United States would leave Afghanistan by May, announced that he planned to move forward with that withdrawal. It's time to end America's longest war, he said in a speech at the White House. At the time of his announcement, there were some 2,500 U.S. troops in Afghanistan. The war has cost the U.S. government trillions of dollars, and more than 2,000 U.S. military members have lost their lives. At least 100,000 Afghani civilians have been injured or killed since 2009, when the United Nations began systematically documenting civilian casualties. Now, this is really important. The drone program, while Obama, roughly around 2012, 2013 timeframe or so, narrowed its scope, still had a ton of civilian casualties because you can't see everything on the ground when you're bombing from the air. So that's where a lot of these casualties came from. They also came from other airstrikes, not necessarily just drones, but helicopters and shit like that. Biden planned a month-long withdrawal that would start in May and then completed by September 11th on the anniversary of the attacks that prompted the U.S. invasion 2 decades ago. Now, this is also important, right? September 11th, everybody knows that it's a huge fucking deal, still very much in Americans' memory. They wanted that political win. The Biden administration, even if it meant, and this is my opinion now, even if it meant that the withdrawal would be a little messier than they would like, they wanted out by that time frame. And so that's why we're still sticking to it. That's why the number of flights are going to continue from today up until August 31st and then not continue anymore. Focus being primarily done for civilians, U.S. and ally forces, combining with other ally forces to help get them out and that sort of thing. So it's still very much going to be the case that we're out by September 11th, and that is going to be a political victory despite everything for Biden. The administration would later move the deadline to August 31st. As U.S. troops began withdrawing, the Taliban mobilized. By the beginning of May, the group had set up dozens of temporary checkpoints, as well as more than 10 permanent outposts along the country's main roads. The posting showed that the group's still powerful, even after 20 years of war, while also weakening Afghans' faith in their own government. By the end of May, U.S. strikes on Taliban had decreased, and the Taliban launched waves of attacks on vulnerable provinces, including Zabul, Ghazni, and Logar, where the militants already controlled much of the rural territory. The attacks enabled the group to infiltrate the province's government-controlled cities. Now, this is very, very important. This is something that the Taliban had did even while I was deployed to Afghanistan in 2015 to 2016. The Taliban would take over rural areas surrounding key provinces and mass forces in the rural areas with the help of either deals from rural tribal leaders or what have you, and push into capital cities and take over capitals. There was a lot of taking back and forth. Herat was a very much very, very contested area that switched control 4 or 5 times throughout the entire process of the war since at least since Obama's presidency started. And this is something that something that was known and actually included in the 30 to 90 day time frame. They were actually expecting this to happen. They were expecting these rural and more outskirt provinces to fall fairly quickly as the Afghan forces would withdraw and put their troops more in line with Kabul, Kandahar, and other key provinces, but they expected the military to hold back the Taliban from those areas and force not a stalemate, but at least more concessions. The war shifted to ground combat between Afghan forces and the militants. Hundreds of Taliban fighters massed in Helmand, a province in the country's south, and launched an assault on the capital, Lashkar, which the group would ultimately capture in less than 3 months. Despite these advances, the withdrawal remained underway. On July 2nd, the United States announced it had vacated Bagram, its most important airfield where I was stationed, the country, 45 miles north of Kabul. The move marked a major step in drawdown, as the base, which once housed tens of thousands of U.S. troops at the height of the war, was handed over to Afghan forces. And importantly, thousands of Afghan Taliban prisoners were also held within Bagram. Now, Bagram was the facility, and the prison facility was manned exclusively, I think as of 2018, maybe a little sooner than that. Don't quote me on the dates here, but was manned exclusively for some time by Afghan forces. And the way the perimeters were set up, it was like you had the Bagram base at large, right, where U.S. and allied forces were, and then like way down the line was the interior of the prison, which was fortified by like 2 or 3 walls between the actual prison and the rest of the base. So it was actually a pretty fortified area. There wasn't really much concern of that being punctured, at least while I was there, by Taliban fighters. But the handoff was less than graceful. Afghan officials said the United States left without telling them. True, turning off the electricity and departing in the dead of night. The Pentagon said it had coordinated with high-level Afghan officials. So now, see, this is the problem here. So it is very possible that the Pentagon is not lying here, especially given how much the military worked with the Afghan military. And this is where the corruption and everything comes into play. If you tell the corrupt high-level officials, politicians, that you're leaving, that's going to give them time to be like, deuces, I'm the fuck out, and not tell anybody else, so it doesn't spread. And you don't get panic and that sort of stuff while you're yourself are like, bye. So that's very much a problem here. I would say very much a problem. July 8th. As the Taliban continued to make gains in security in Afghanistan appeared to be disintegrating, Biden defended his decision to vacate, saying that he expected there would be challenges and that it was time to bring a war to an end. I will not send another generation of Americans to war, Biden said. He added the prospect of Taliban overrunning everything and owning the whole country was highly unlikely. Ooh, mission accomplished words rare, bro. Ugh. July 23rd. At the end of July, U.S. officials said they had conducted airstrikes to support Afghan forces trying to beat back the Taliban. Some strikes targeted Kandahar, one of Afghan's largest cities, and the birthplace of the Taliban. The next day, the top commander of the U.S. forces in Kabul, Marine General Kenneth Frank McKenzie, announced that the United States was prepared to continue its air support as the Taliban made territorial gains. August 2nd. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani, while addressing the country's parliament, blamed the abrupt U.S. withdrawal for Afghanistan security. Sure, buddy. We know what happened. We were saying this for months. Abrupt is not abrupt when you were told that this was happening a year ago. Shut up. You definitely deserve blame on this. By the beginning of August, the Taliban was advancing on territory it had not seized in 2 decades. The group launched assaults on 2 major Afghan cities, Kandahar and Herat, shooting rockets at their airports. The groups had previously made gains only in rural areas. Now they were testing densely populated economic centers. In Helmand, earlier I said Herat, I meant Helmand. Helmand was one of those areas that was constantly under back and forth. So in Helmand province on August 4th, health officials saw injured patients caught in the crossfire of increased fighting. August 6th, the Taliban seized its first provincial capital, Zarajan, I don't know if that's how pronounced, of Nimruz province on the border with Iran. The city fell without a fight, as most of the Afghan forces fled the scene. August 7th. 1 day later, the group overran another capital, Shibagran, in the northwestern province of Zarajan. August 8th. The next day, Taliban forces moved through 3 more cities in the north, Kunduz and the capitals of Sar-e-Pol and Takhar provinces. In Kunduz, fighters overran a prison and released Taliban militants who joined their ranks and helped with the assault. Hundreds of Afghan troops hid out in military base on the edge of the city, but ultimately surrendered 3 days later. August 9th. The momentum continued as the Taliban took Aibak, the capital of Samarkand province without a fight, cementing power in the north. August 10th and the 11th. Then the militants took the capitals of provinces Badakhasan in the north, Farah in the west, and Bagh Halan, which some 160 miles from Kabul. On August 10th, President Biden doubled down on withdrawal amid the chaos, telling the press, "I do not regret my decision." Meanwhile, U.S. intelligence officials who had initially warned the Kabul could fall within 6 to 12 months after the U.S. departure said the capital would fall in as soon as a month. Kabul would fall in less than a week. August 12th to the 13th. The fall of Kabul began to seem all but inevitable on August 13th. After the Taliban had overrun Afghanistan's second and third largest cities, Kandahar and Herat, as well as the city of Lashkar in the southwest. As the situation spiraled, the United States government on August 12th announced it would send some 3,000 combat troops to help evacuate diplomats, civilians, and Afghans who helped the United States during the war. Other international embassies also had made plans to shutter their doors and evacuate diplomats and civilians. August 14th, the Biden administration authorized more troops to help the evacuation efforts, bringing the total number approximately to 5,000 as Taliban fighters reached the outskirts of Kabul, the seat of the Afghan government. As more provinces and capitals around the country fell, Ghani appeared muted in an address to the nation, saying he was aware of the situation in Afghanistan, which is in serious danger of instability. August 15th, the next day, Taliban forces entered Kabul and Ghani fled the country, signaling the collapse of the government. 9 days after seizing its first provincial capital, the group appeared to have taken control of virtually the entire nation. As countries scrambled to evacuate people from Kabul, Secretary of State Antony Blinken defended the U.S. withdrawal. The president made the determination that it was time to end the war for the United States, to get out of the middle of a civil war in Afghanistan, and to make sure that we were looking at our interests across the world, he said on ABC News. Blinken said U.S. embassy personnel in the fortified Green Zone were being relocated to Kabul airport for safety reasons. Night settled in Kabul and Taliban fighters milled about in the presidential palace. They sat behind what was Ghani's desk just a few hours earlier and clustered in a room that looked set up for negotiations. As the world watched, a member of the Taliban took down the flag of Afghanistan hanging within the palace walls, rolled it up, and set it to the side. So that is the full story that happened with how the process of Afghanistan fell to the Taliban. Now, one of the other things here, and this is another article that I'd like to read to y'all, because it's new to me. I didn't get a chance to read this previously, but it's one of the things that the U.S. government and the IMF is doing in order to ensure that to put some additional pressure onto the Taliban, to make sure that they're keeping to their word, or at least not give them a ton of fucking money. And that is, they're going to put the squeeze on the Taliban through the $400 million in aid that it still controls. Now let's do this. Despite the chaotic end to its presence in Afghanistan, the United States still has control over billions of dollars belonging to the Afghan central bank, money that Washington is making sure remains out of the reach of the Taliban. About $7 billion of the central bank's $9 billion in foreign reserves are held by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the former acting governor of Afghan central bank said Wednesday, and the Biden administration has already moved to block access to that money. The Taliban's access to other money could also be restricted by the long reach of American sanctions and influence. The central bank has $1.3 billion in international accounts, some of it in euros and British pounds in European banks, the former official Al-Jamal Ahmadi said in an interview on Wednesday. Remaining reserves are held by the Swiss bank for international settlements, he added. Mr. Ahmadi said earlier on Wednesday that the Taliban had already been asking central bank officials about where the money was. We can say that accessible funds to the Taliban are perhaps 0.1 to 0.2% of Afghans' total international reserves, he wrote. Not much. Other funding has been undermined. The International Monetary Fund said on Wednesday that it would block Afghanistan's access to about $460 million in emergency reserves. The decision followed pressure from the Biden administration to ensure that the reserves did not reach the Taliban. Money from an agreement reached in November among more than 60 countries to send Afghanistan $12 billion over the next 4 years is also in doubt. Last week, Germany said it would not provide grants to Afghanistan if the Taliban took over and introduced Sharia law. I wish they would stop doing that. Would not took over and introduced Sharia. And on Tuesday, the European Union said no payments were going to Afghanistan until officials clarify the situation. So yes, that is what's going on with Afghan money. So we can see here, based on what those articles said, that despite the fact that the Taliban does control Afghanistan, they're still going to try to put pressure on the Taliban in order to extract concessions from the Taliban and work with maybe former Afghan officials or civilians in order to ensure that it doesn't get as bad as it could, or at least that's the thinking here. And if it does get as bad as it can, well, at least U.S. money isn't going to it. U.S. and world money isn't going to it for that regard. Now, this is another thing that's interesting, and I'm going to drop the link to this in, and this is something that I think needs to be said. And my boy Matthew Iglesias, left hate him, the right hates him. I like the guy. I think he makes some good calls. Every once in a while, he does some cringe, but we all do some cringe. But I'll go ahead and drop this link in the chat here for you all. But he says on Twitter, did Biden make the right call in Afghanistan? We asked 27 former senior national security officials, now working as defense contractors whose work there failed on every level. Their verdict? Definitely blame Biden and not themselves, and keep the money coming. So this is one of those situations that I think is actually very pertinent to how we analyze how a lot of this pushback against Biden from war hawks and the right is actually should be seen. Prior to, I would say, Libya, the United States establishment had a consensus when it came to foreign policy. And that consensus was around two central ideas. One, free trade is good and it will reduce war and conflict and it will help liberalize other countries. Well, three, free trade helps liberalize other countries and it's good for the United States overall. Second, democracies are good. They are inherent good. If we can promote democracies around the world, we should do so. And three, Pax Americana actually works, and we can accomplish that and some of our other goals through U.S. military foreign intervention. This is why you see people pushed for Iraq as early as 1996, and pretty much every single foreign policy thing that's happened since 1960 or so, including the Vietnam War. This is the idea that America has a duty to the world in order to help maintain political order and promote liberal values. That shining city on the hill. Ring the bell, give me your money, give me your poor, give me all the stuff, and we'll have no more war, basically. And that is kind of where some of this pushback is coming from. Because if they admit that it fails, then they have to admit that they themselves failed. Remember that. Now, what else do we have here? Well, I hate to break it to y'all, but the pushback is being pushed by rank partisanship, as we all know. So one of the interesting things that came out this week here that I'm sure some of you have seen, but we're going to say it here on this program anyways, is that the GOP has taken down 2020-page touting Trump's historic peace agreement with the Taliban. Now, Trump and people that supported him really liked the idea of reaching a deal with the Taliban, reaching a deal with all these dictators in order to keep America's interests secure and to get the hell out of war. Part of Trump's appeal, and believe it or not, was being anti-war, despite the fact that he was not anti-war. Oh my God. So a lot of people, left and right, look at Trump as being the first anti-war president of my lifetime. So last 35 years. That's not the case at all. Okay. Full stop. Not the case. He might be cowardly and that kept him from being more adventurous, but he was not anti-war. He actually did things that would escalate to things of war. For example, the assassination of Soleimani in Iraq airport without letting the Iraqi government know that it's going to happen. Another thing, he literally stayed in Syria for oil. He pulled out, I don't know, like a lot of the troops after the Kurds took over the territory, but he put them in 2,000 or so to protect oil fields, literally. And he's like, we're going to do it for oil. We're taking the oil. We deserve it. Just take the oil. So and then he would make deals with like the Saudis against Qatar and, you know, stuff like that, because I don't know, terrorism or something. I don't fucking know. Maybe MBS gave him a handy in the back room. I don't know. Maybe he got his ego stroked, if you know what I mean. But those things are not anti-war actions. They're the actions of somebody that is maybe a little chaotic, but very much willing to do war and not be anti-war. Even the deal with the Taliban isn't necessarily anti-war, because they're like, if you renege on this deal, we're going to come and bomb you. And that's why he authorized the mother of all bombs being dropped on the Taliban. And worthless. It was such a waste of money. It was big. It was a big explosion. Big boom. Big boom. Like they had like on the Richter scale, like more than an atomic bomb or something ridiculous. But it was a waste of money. If you wanted, like, you want to shock and awe, there's better ways to do that that don't cost as much money. But that's neither here nor there. Now, with that said, why is it then that that Republicans are doing this? Well, again, it makes Biden look bad. And not only does it make Biden look bad, but it tries to give them cover for their own complicity in the actions that are happening right now. And that brings us to Mike Pompeo. Now, Mike Pompeo was on the Sunday News Show with not Brett Barr. I'm sorry, it was Chris Wallace, and he had some things to say. And Chris pushed back on some of that stuff, so we're going to go ahead and listen to a little bit of that right now. And I'm going to say my piece about why I think this guy's a complete motherfucking loser.
I just want to ask you one more question about your record, though, sir. You were the first American Secretary of State.
Let's go ahead and rewind that a bit. Sorry about that, guys. Because it's lower than I was expecting.
We would have done it in Afghanistan as well.
I just want to ask you one more question about your record, though, sir. You were the first American Secretary of State to ever meet with the Taliban, and you talked about how they had agreed to join us in the fight against terrorism. Here you are, sir.
The gentleman I met with agreed that they would break that relationship and that they would work alongside of us to destroy, deny resources to, and have al-Qaeda depart from that place.
Oh, I thought I got rid of the ad by skipping. Oh, no.
Do you regret giving the Taliban that legitimacy? Do you regret pressing the Afghan government to release 5,000 prisoners, which they did, some of whom are now back on the battlefield fighting with the Taliban?
And some of them are even leaders of the Taliban. Oh, no.
Chris, you make peace with your enemies. The statement that I made that day was absolutely true. You can ask the military leaders on the ground. We did good work to crush al-Qaeda. When we left office, there were fewer than 200 al-Qaeda left in Afghanistan.
So this is taking credit for something you're not responsible for. Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan has been waning for the entire time the U.S. has been in Afghanistan. When we captured and killed bin Laden, the number of al-Qaeda fighters within Afghanistan was, I want to say, like 20% or so of the number of Taliban fighters that were there when we entered in 2001. And they've actually moved their operations from Afghanistan to other places because of how heavy the U.S. presence was. Maybe there was some continued Al-Qaeda fighters within the territory, but most of it was AFQP. That is Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, which is the Yemen branch, and also Al-Qaeda operations within in the southeastern area of Africa, and I can't name the exact countries that they were operating in, but it's not Al-Shabaab. It's other groups that are there. Not Boko Haram either. I don't think Boko Haram is an affiliate. And with the rise of ISIS, a lot of fighters that were joining Al-Qaeda were actually going to ISIS and fighting within Iraq. in Syria. So this is not something you should give him credit for at all. This is kind of just the confluence and purpose, natural evolution of the conflict.
Chris, we never trusted the Taliban. You can ask them yourselves. We made abundantly clear if they did not live up to that piece of paper,
So there was no concessions required other than don't let this country be a safe haven for terrorists. There was nothing about women's rights. There was nothing about liberal democracy. There was nothing about keeping foreign forces, or not foreign forces, but foreign like investment or anything like that else. It was all rank. Hey, just keep the terrorist out. We'll leave. So this is again, he's bullshitting here.
Words that they had put on the ground. We weren't going to allow them to just walk away from any deal that they'd struck. We were going to go crush them. We were going to go impose
lying again.
Real costs on them. We weren't going to let them take these provincial capitals.
Lying again, because they made specific deals that they would not. They didn't make a deal with the Afghan government to ensure that this happened. They made it with the Taliban and just said the Taliban don't let the terrorists back in.
They understood that American power was going to come to their village, to their community, to the friends and family around them, and we were going to make sure that they understood America wasn't going to allow Americans to be killed from this place. We didn't take the word.
Yeah, Americans being killed from this place. That is the primary thing here. So that's one thing that I wanted to share with you all here, and that so my opinion on this is like it's really, this is just rank, like I said, it's rank partisanship. And I posted this on Twitter. I posted it on Facebook. I'm going to go ahead and read it for y'all again here in a second, once I can find it. Let's see here. Can I go to my own name? Twitter. No, it's going to be easier to find on Facebook. So, but it's, let's see. Crap. And this is like the one thing I didn't have pulled up, you know? Come on. Okay. So, just watched the Pompeo interview with Chris Wallace. He basically abdicates any responsibility, as we saw just now, in creating the mess in Afghanistan right now. And he tried to say that Biden is leaving the world stage to work on climate change. Didn't get to that part. Let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and at least throw the audio on here.
Taliban. We watched their actions on the ground, and when they didn't, we crushed them.
It's here, sir. When the implement
harms American security. So this is in the context of a Biden administration that has basically abandoned the global stage in favor of climate change. Right? They've been focused on.
So yeah, this is that, and there it goes. Climate change, critical race theory, everything that liberals want to take care of. And, you know, the buzzword of critical race theory, which we all know is just fucking that. It's a buzzword. Doesn't mean anything. I mean, it means something, but nobody uses it correctly, so it means nothing.
While the embassy is at risk, that didn't happen during our 4 years. I do think there's a real risk here.
Yeah, I think the real risk is listening to more people like Pompeo. So these people, they're lying to them. They don't care about Pax Americana. They don't care about the people in these countries that liberated. They barely give a shit about real politics, because if they cared about real politics, they wouldn't allow the Taliban to fucking make deals with Iran, Russia, and China while they would have made those stipulations as part of the pullout agreement, right? They're simply pursuing raw cultural power and dominance of the home front while trying to make a buck on foreign boondoggles. That's it. That's all they're doing. That's why they mentioned climate change, and that's why they mentioned critical race theory. That's why Pompeo mentioned these two things. There is also an unhealthy mix here of fetishism and dominionism, where they believe that the Left Behind series is prophecy, and their purpose is to make a mix of apocalyptical fetishism and dominionism, where they believe the Left Behind series is prophecy, and their purpose is to make it a reality. They are un-American. Don't let them lie to you. I 100% stand by those words. With Pompeo is a dominionist. He believes that the Christians should dominate the world. He believes that the dominionists typically believe that the Left Behind series is actually prophecy. They think that that's what's going to happen. That's why they're so hawkish to Iran. That's why they're so much That's why they're Christian Zionist a lot of the times. They want, and don't confuse Christian Zionism with Zionism. Christian Zionism is a blood cult. They think that if the Jews take over all of biblical Israel, it's going to summon their sky daddy, and but in order to do that, the Jews have to basically get wiped out to do it. It's just so much fucking bullshit. I can't fucking stand these people. I really can't. So, that's why I do these things. That's why I comment on politics. Partly it's because they're just lying to everybody, and somebody needs to call them out on it in no uncertain terms. Call them out on it. The media is very bad at that because they want to see both sides. Both sides are bad. Both sides are good. No, there are some people that are just evil, and you shouldn't tolerate it. And that's my say on this. That's what really grinds my gear. Now, there's and on the front of the real politics thing is that Chinese firms are going to resume projects in Afghanistan amid the power shift. Now, one of the things that a lot of tankies over the last 2 weeks have been saying is that, oh my God, they found lithium ion battery stuff in the mountains of Afghanistan. It must be the reason why we're trying to go back into Afghanistan. It's bullshit, all right? Because if that was the case, Americans would not have allowed the Afghan government to make deals with the Chinese government in order to have mining rights and get the first crack at exploring for these things. America, if it was actually practicing the empire that leftist tankies all think it was doing, that wouldn't have been allowed at all. Whatsoever. It would have been American companies, maybe British, maybe other European countries, maybe French companies doing the mining in Afghanistan. And it's not. All the Chinese firms made most of the deals in Afghanistan, and the US military supplied the security in order to make it happen. So that's like, I don't like that. If you're going to be in a country and like liberate it or whatever, you should, like, this isn't just take the oil thing. This isn't like that. This is like, you should compete better and make sure that they go to you for some of it. But like, if we're not going back in to get that because the Chinese already own it. So it's bullshit. Like, don't let them lie to you. Don't let these people don't know fuck all of what they're talking about. Not a goddamn thing. All right. So the Chinese government, Iran and Russia have already said that they would recognize the Taliban government, first of all. And then let's see what it was. We got with a major political shift, some believe that there could still be a chance for the project to resume. So this is a Chinese group talking about this. We would consider reopening after the situation is stabilized and international recognition, including the Chinese government recognition of the Taliban regime, takes place. A source at China Meteorological Group, Corp, MCC Group, which is involved in the project, told the Global Times on Tuesday. MCC Group won the right to mine its deposits for 30 years in November of 2007. So this was before Obama took over. This happened while under Bush. And the contract was signed with the Afghan government in May of 2008. But after many years, the project, which is about 19 miles or 30.58 kilometers from the capital Kabul, has yet to start operation due to safety issues, several sources told the Global Times. So it's I can't, like, I don't know. Hey, everybody, tell me what you think in the comments below. Hit me up on the Discord. Hit me up in the chat. We're going to talk more about this, but I just can't with these people that don't understand or don't have any idea of what actually transpired in Afghanistan over the last 20 years. Just having these ridiculous takes from, like, we're just going to end up not committing anything, or have, like, the idea that there was possibly no winnable strategy at all, when we know that not everything that could have helped us win, quote unquote, in Afghanistan was even tried. Now, one of the other disgusting things here, and I'll drop the link, and I'm going to pull it up on the screen here, and I'll drop the link in chat, is the right anti-refugee jihad. So this is from the Bulwark, and normally I would just share the links here, or not really editorialize too much from somebody else's editorialing. But they collected all the videos of things that I was collecting already. So I was going to share all these videos as they came up. But long story short, if Afghanistan, like honestly, a lot of the people on the right would be pro-Taliban if they weren't Muslim. If they were Christian, they would be like 100% go Taliban, just like Tucker Carlson's like 100% go Poland, go Hungary. That's the country. Go Hungary, right? They would be pro all these things, and they're just not. They're not at all. Yeah, it's just the amount of stuff, the overlap between what they seemingly want and what they seemingly want and what others seemingly want is pretty fucking high. And apparently I didn't have any of my tags here, so I'm not getting people. So we'll pull it up on the screen shortly. Make sure the closed captionings are working really quick too. Sorry about this, guys. I forgot the closed captionings. Yep, closed captionings are working. Cool. So yeah, we're gonna pull this up on the screen here and share the Bulwark's article, and I'll drop it in chat as well, just so that we all have together here. Oh, and there we go. So President Biden's failure to get more of our allies, including military translators and their families, out of Afghanistan before this week's catastrophic collapse has drawn withering and completely justified criticism. True, Charlie Sykes is based. This is very much true. We should have had people evacuating Kabul despite the assurances of the Afghan government, because we need to get our people out. Fuck anybody else, right? Not fuck anybody else, but fuck what anybody else says, because you want to make sure that they get out. Now, I'm glad that the Biden administration has sent 5,000 people back into Afghanistan in order to ensure that this happens, but they shouldn't have had to do that in the first place. They should have just done it. So, but the MAGA right, in its moment of opportunity, a chance to return to a by now familiar playbook of xenophobia, outrage, and fear. So we're just going to listen to somebody's stuff. Trigger warning: xenophobia, racism, Islamophobia, etc.
President Joe Biden's Department of Defense will accept 30,000 Afghan refugees into military installations.
30,000 is nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Following the collapse of Kabul. Boom. Political transformation.
30,000 people in a country of 350 million people is not transformation at all. Shut the fuck up. All right. Stephen Miller, it's becoming increasingly clear that the Biden and his radical deputies will use their catastrophic debacle in Afghanistan as pretext for doing to America what Angela Merkel did to Germany and Europe. Germany and Europe are fine. Like, the vast majority of Syrian refugees have integrated, and they've actually supported the communities that they integrated to. They were out there helping bail out water during flooding and everything else. Like, they are not the kind of people that are going to commit terrorist attacks on the soil, because they're not the kind of people that wanted to do that. They left because they were trying to get away from that. Fuck off, Stephen Miller. Here's Tucker Carlson saying the same bullshit stuff.
The people who made the Afghan occupation possible would like to see a lot more of our southern border, much more unrestrained immigration to the U.S. Bring in the refugees, they're screaming tonight. That's the only lesson they're taking from this debacle. Quote, America must not stand idly by, Mitt Romney tweeted today.
They're even going after other Republicans in this.
The president must urgently rush to defend, rescue, and give and expand asylum. There is no time to spare. There's lots of time to spare as Americans die of fentanyl ODs and millions of foreign nationals whose identities we can't confirm move here. But when it comes to bringing Afghans to our country, there's no time to spare. And Liz Cheney firmly agrees with that. So does her friend Bill Kristol and Nancy.
So this is Tucker Carlson being a populist right person when he's really just being a racist dick weasel. He just wants to be racist. He just wants to keep out anybody that's not white. Hence the Hungary situation. Hence going over there saying they're based. Hence why they're like, you don't have this. You don't have these kind of LGBTQ people around here. Like he is this close this close to saying that the Taliban don't have pronouns.
Pelosi and Victoria Nuland at the State Department and so many more just like them. These are the architects of the disaster we are watching unfold on television. They should be groveling for our forgiveness, but they're not. Why? Because contrition requires decency. There's no chance. So we're getting it. And if history is any guide, and it's always a guide, we will see many refugees from Afghanistan resettle in our country in coming months, probably in your neighborhood.
Good. Bring them. I know Afghan refugees. They're fine people. They really are. They're not that different than anybody else. They're really not.
And over the next decade, that number may swell to the millions.
Good. Bring them. 1 billion Americans. 1 billion Americans. You want to take on China? 1 billion Americans.
So first we invade and then we're invaded. It is always the same. The people who made...
See, that's what they're worried about. They're just frankly, cultural power is all they fucking care about. This is just proof that what I said after just watching Pompeo's video that I watched like a week ago. Like, that's all they fucking give a shit about. They are vastly afraid of becoming a minority because they are worried that I gotta get them. They are worried that if they become a minority, that they will have done unto them what it was done unto other people. And that is very much a fear that these people have. I can't tell you the amount of times I've gotten into political arguments online where I said, hey, maybe we should let a little more refugees in. Hey, maybe we should be a little more welcoming of people, or maybe you shouldn't care that, a Mexican moved in next door or whatever. That maybe you should support Black Lives Matter, for instance. And they're like, why would I do that? Like it boiled, like, this is not a direct quote, but it was like, several people have said, why would I want that when they're just going to do to me what was done to them out of revenge? And that is their greatest fear. It's not mind-boggling that this is the case, because the right is very much influenced by fear. They very much have that as one of their central motivations. The kind of thing that's a common refrain is that the left needs to be inspired while the right needs to be fearful is very much true. And that is what's coming through these videos. Lastly, Laura Ingraham. Oh, no, there's a couple more here. So we'll just Laura Ingraham, of course.
And is it really our responsibility to welcome thousands of potentially unvetted refugees from Afghanistan?
Yes, it is.
All day we've heard phrases like, we promised them. Well, who did? Did you?
Yes, I did. I served in Afghanistan. Shut the fuck up.
Well.
Did you? No. We made that a thing when we decided to invade their fucking country. Thank you for the follow. Stop the Lies 32. Stop the Lies. I wonder what do you got to say? Stop the Lies. What's going on? Laverne Spicer. Not one refugee from Afghanistan needs to come to our country. Not one. Call Qatar. Call the UAE. Call Saudi Arabia. Call Egypt. The US and Europe took all the Syrian refugees. We can't do it anymore. America first means America first. All right. So, first, Turkey took in 3 to 4 million Syrian refugees. UAE took in about 1 million refugees. Qatar took in about 300,000 refugees. Egypt took in about 500,000 refugees. They took in so many refugees into their comparatively tiny countries that it actually caused instability within their countries. Lebanon, for example, has experienced instability because of the amount of refugees that are in their countries, because they can't support them all. But they did the right thing and still took them in. This is one of those situations where this lady here, just like her predecessors, just like everyone else, is basically saying that she doesn't want Muslims in the country, and that's it. Oh, okay. I don't know how you found this stream, Stop the Lies, but no, not necessarily. The Afghan people are not necessarily safer now. The puppet government did fall. Yes, you're right. They were very corrupt. The fact is that they weren't much of a puppet government because the Afghan people actually voted them in. The little blue marks on their fingers. I'm gonna have to push back on this and we'll get back to shitting on the fucking righties here in a minute. So the Afghan people actually elected their leaders. Karzai was actually elected by the Afghan people. I don't give a fuck if you're Muslim, dude. It doesn't matter. Okay. Well, then I'll just ignore you. But I'll just push back on this anyways. So it doesn't matter because the Afghan people actually voted for their leaders. Karzai was initially installed as kind of a puppet leader. You're right about that. And then Afzal Ghani was actually elected by the Afghan people. That's why you had thousands of Afghanis, or hundreds of thousands of Afghanis, wave their little finger with the blue mark where they put their finger onto the ballot to who they voted for with their fingerprint. They were proud of that moment. They were very proud of their ability to actually vote in an election and actually support the leaders that they wanted. So what you were saying is not 100% wrong, but it's more wrong than right. So take what you want from it. And I'm going to go ahead and just ignore you for the rest of this. Go ahead and do this now. Oh, thanks for the follow, by the way. You're actually helping this channel out. So, joke's on you. Yeah, there we go. Go away for a bit. And then studio mode. All right. So let me go ahead and get this woman up here. So as I was saying, shitting on the right wing here. This, like I said, all these Muslim countries here actually took in the vast majority of refugees from Syria. They took in the vast majority of refugees from Afghanistan during the American occupation. Same thing for Iraq. And to say otherwise is to either be ignorant or a liar. And considering she's a Republican that's running for office or has office, it's the latter, because that's what they do. Since they are going to keep pushing this thing, I'm going to keep pushing back on this. I want more of the people that we promised to help into the U.S. get into the U.S. because that is our duty and moral obligation for helping put them into this perilous situation in the first place. Full stop. Full stop. All right. So yeah. And you know how I know that this is just rank anti-Muslim Islamophobia, or rank Islamophobia and xenophobia? Because fucker Carlson is once again pushing the narrative that Ilhan Omar married her brother to get into the U.S., to get him into the U.S. Now, we know that this is complete and utter bullshit because the way the family visa program works is that immediate family, once you're granted, gets expedited into it's immediate family. So mother, father, and then siblings. So mother and father and siblings are expedited in the process once a person is granted American green card. So that would mean that she doesn't have to marry her brother because he's getting in more than likely like a month or two after she is, or a month or two after their parents are. And so there's no need for that to happen. They can just sign up for the paper and they'll be like, yeah, you're the immediate brother of this woman. You're allowed into the country. Here's your papers. That's kind of how it works because of this notion that in America we care about families, kind of, I guess. Republicans don't seem to very much anymore, but that's the real one right there, right? So, this is okay. Here we go.
And now we're learning the FBI had evidence.
Hey, sorry, it's so loud. So, meant to do this and go back over to YouTube. All right, gonna play this
to confirm it, but didn't do anything about it. Randa Devine is an actual journalist. She works at the New York Post, where she writes a column. She joins us tonight to explain what exactly.
She's an actual journalist. Works at the New York Post. Sure, buddy. Like you're an actual journalist yourself. Shut the fuck up. I fucking hate fucker Carlson. Absolute dog shit. Absolute dog shit. So we're going to go ahead and not listen to this video. I'm just going to read the Justin's Bagona thing. So get ready for gonna be that kind of night for Tucker Carlson, as he talks about how DNA evidence proves Ilhan Omar married her brother. It's bullshit. There's no evidence whatsoever, because the person that Miranda Devine and Tucker are relying on as their unimpeachable source that Ilhan Omar married her brother is Anton Lazaro, the person that was just indicted on child sex trafficking. Yeah, child sex trafficking. That's what it's come to.
That actually happened, it turns out. And now we're learning the FBI had evidence to confirm it, but
to spend Ilhan Omar was a genetic match, the DNA.
So where did you get this DNA from? Coffee cup or something? Why should we believe these people? We shouldn't. Full stop. I'm not even going to put this on the screen. I'm just going to put it out there that this is proof positive. This is just Islamophobia, and they need to get bent. So that's... yeah, maybe it's me. So yeah, we're going to put the chat back on. Yeah. Yeah, Tucker Carlson, he's just rank. And honestly, the apple doesn't fall too far from a tree. There is a great documentary. It's pretty interesting, called The Lady in the Dale. It's on HBO Max or HBO, whatever you have HBO from. And it talks about his dad being against a trans woman back in the 70s who was trying to build a 3-wheel car that would get better gas mileage than the cars on the road at the time during the OPEC oil crisis. And his dad said, there's not something right about this lady. And it made it his mission to out her not only as trans, but as a grifter because she's trans. And so that's what Tucker does. So we know where he got it from. His fucking dad. Imagine being that much of a daddy's boy. You're going to be a bigot just like him. Man, ain't that the way? But that, in a nutshell, is everything about Afghanistan, everything about the right wings, everything about the right wing talking about Muslims and not wanting them in and where they're coming from for this, the rank partisanship about how Biden fucked up when they would have just done the same thing, etc. So we're going to do a little palate cleanser here and talk about something a little more fun and interesting, and that is OnlyFans is going to ban explicit pornography on its platform. The stuff that made OnlyFans what it is today, they're going to get rid of it because banks don't like it. So I'm going to read this little article from Variety and share it with y'all, and we're gonna get to it. OnlyFans, which has amassed a base of more than 130 million users, largely for adult-oriented subscription fan pages, announced that it will ban explicit content this fall. The UK-based company said it's making the change to comply with the request of our banking partners and payout providers in a statement provided to Variety. Effective October 1st, OnlyFans will prohibit the posting of any content containing sexually explicit conduct, the company said in a statement, in order to ensure the long-term sustainability of the platform and to continue to host an inclusive community of creators and fans, we must evolve our content guidelines. According to OnlyFans, creators will continue to be allowed to post content containing nudity as long as it's consistent with our acceptable use policy. The site's terms currently allow nudity except in the case of content featuring public nudity recorded in or broadcast from a jurisdiction where public nudity is illegal. We will be sharing more details in the coming days, and we will actively support and guide our creators through this change in content guidelines. The company said, OnlyFans remains committed to the highest level of safety and content moderation of any social platform. All creators are verified prior to being able to upload any content to OnlyFans, and all uploaded content is checked by automated systems and human moderators. OnlyFans earlier this week officially launched OnlyFans TV, a free streaming service that will not include any sexual explicit material. OnlyFans TV features original content from more than 100 OnlyFans creators, spanning fitness, cooking, comedy, health, music, and more. So trying to basically compete with Twitch. OnlyFans earlier this year soft launched the on-demand streaming service, which now features a content library of over 800 videos. So competing with Twitch and YouTube. Founded in 2016, OnlyFans says it has paid out more than $5 billion to content creators worldwide. According to its terms, the company keeps 20% of revenue generated by its 2 million plus creators. Because it has been a home to X-rated content, OnlyFans is available only on the web and not on mobile app platforms including iOS and Android. So this might be another reason why they're going to ban explicit sex material so they can get into the mobile market where a lot of people actually view material now. Top personalities with OnlyFans pages includes Bad Baddie, Cardi B, Jordan Woods, Bella Thorne, Tyga, Amber Rose, Black China, Ruby Rose, Anna Mori, and Trey Songz. In July of 2021, OnlyFans approved 114,065 creators' accounts out of 279,222 applications. According to the company's first monthly transparency report, it also revealed that it deactivated 15 OnlyFans accounts last month after detecting child pornography on those accounts. So here's what I think about this. Right? Here's what I think is happening. So this is what we are seeing here. What we are seeing within OnlyFans is they are going to ban outright pornography. And by outright pornography, I mean the kind of stuff that you can get on X videos or cam sites or not even cam sites. They're banning Hustler, but keeping Playboy. Oh, my dogs are playing in the light. So they're going to ban Hustler and they're going to keep Playboy. And they're doing this because, as stated, 15 accounts were seen for child pornography. And if you have to moderate every single hardcore video for that kind of thing, you're going to use a lot of money. And you're also going to see issues with authorities and chargebacks. I think another reason why we're seeing this is because there's been promises by various creators to show some very explicit material and then get reneged on it and people doing chargebacks. Or maybe they thought the person was prettier than they were or whatever, and they're doing chargeback on this. And a lot of banks don't like the chargeback thing because it costs them a ton of money. Because not only do they have to spend the money to send the money back, but they don't get to keep that money in their bank accounts in order to make more money off of it later. That's what we're seeing. That's what I think we're seeing with OnlyFans. If you are a content creator on OnlyFans and would like to talk about this, please go ahead and reach out. You can follow us on Twitter where I post all the memes, and more shit where I just talk about whatever the fuck I like. You can join us on the Discord or on this program. Hit me up wherever so we can get on the Discord, which the links are coming to you now. I think it's up here on both YouTube and Twitch. So go ahead and join the Discord community. It's a good community. We're building up a bit, trying to reach out. And again, if this is your first time on seeing the Crowdsourced Politics News Roundups, I am Cypher here, also known as Anthony Rivera Strain from Crowdsourced Politics podcast. I'm usually the host and moderator of the Crowdsourced Politics podcast, and we do a weekly news roundup Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we talk about the news with the kind of analysis only the crowd can provide. If you would like to join us on this program, either as a caller, because all our live shows are call-in shows, or as a guest to talk about the news with me to the audience, you're more than welcome to hop in the Discord. We're more than happy to have you there, and it will be a good time. So if you pop in the Discord and I don't see you right away or what have you, I'll be hanging out in the Hangout chat, or just join one of the chat channels and I'll pull you into the podcast channel so that we can get you in and going over there. So palate cleanser done. We're going to talk a little bit more about some international news before we get into some COVID news, all the more sad stuff, and then we'll do another palate cleanser with some weird news, which is some interesting stuff with where is it? So some interesting stuff with some alligators. So what is next? Next is Haiti. If you have been paying attention to the news with Haiti, you already know that there has been an earthquake off the shore of Haiti and has left 2,000 dead. Haiti is still not fully recovered from the earthquake of 2010, and there are still people displaced and living in ram shacks and that sort of stuff. And it is a tragedy of epic proportions that a lot of people seem to not really give a shit about anymore, simply because it seems to happen all the time, and so people have become numb to it. It sucks that is the case. Honestly, I don't know what more can be done. We tried international aid, and of course, international aid has its own history of corruption and siphoning away of funds and that sort of thing. We tried direct aid. We tried working with local groups. We tried working with the government there. There's so much in the way of not having coherent governance and civil society that it makes helping very hard. Which is why we should open our borders more and allow people to at least temporarily live in the United States, or get them settled in help get them settled in other countries if the United States is not the proper fit for them, in order to be able to repair their lives in general. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up this article from the BBC and read it to y'all on air. So they're safe, honorary, hooray for boobies. Yes, booby pics are safe. Maybe it's me. Sorry, I just now saw that. Yeah, let me go ahead and get it up on the YouTubes. All right, go ahead and put the chat on here too. All right, so do that. All right. Mr. Henry said Haiti was physically and mentally devastated. More than 12,000 people have been left injured and 332 are still missing after a 7.2 magnitude quake. There were further tremors late on Wednesday, causing many to rush from their places of shelter into the streets, which isn't safer, honestly. Haitian officials estimated there are 600,000 people in need of emergency assistance. Delivery of aid has been further hampered by heavy rains brought this week by Tropical Storm Grace. The UN Children's Fund, UNICEF, says about 500,000 children are limited or no access to shelter, safe water, and food. UNICEF also warned that many schools had been destroyed 3 weeks before they were due to reopen. Children have been out of school for months at the time because of the COVID pandemic, combined with security challenges. It is so crucial for children who have just gone through this traumatic earthquake plus extreme weather experiences to have the normalcy and stability of being in a classroom with their friends and teachers, UNICEF Haiti representative Bruno Mays said. My dog is barking, so I'm going to get up here. There you go. All right. Dog is on the camera now. I just don't want her barking. Look at him. Look at how cute my dog is. All right. Back to reading the news. Don't turn off my mic. UNICEF also warned, aid slow to arrive. Anger is growing in many remote areas. You're down. You keep turning off my mic. Anger is growing in many remote areas where aid has yet to arrive. There were also mudslides in the mountains that injured and killed a lot of people. Some are missing and we don't have the means to go find them. A resident of... Okay, hold on. I'm sorry about that. Dogs are dogs, you know. So anger is growing in many remote areas where aid has yet to arrive. There were a lot of mudslides in the mountains that injured and killed a lot of people. Some are missing and we don't have the means to go find them. A resident of Marche area told Agence France Press News Agency. USAID agency USAID said many roads remained impassable. Aid agencies and rescue workers are also having to contend with armed gangs who have attacked convoys traveling in the worst hit areas. So this is another issue that's happening with Haiti. We know that the Haitian president was assassinated. There's instability within the government, so that leading to gangs and other people running rampant and being able to exert their own power, influences over the areas. And of course, if aid is flowing through, they're going to try to hit that because it's an easy target in order to get money, because it's just going to be given to them rather than being put up for a fight. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said on Tuesday that following negotiations, the gangs had agreed to let aid through. Little shelter. In the city of Les Cayens, one of the areas worst affected by the quake, many survivors are sleeping in makeshift tents on the city's football field. The earthquake compounds problems facing the impoverished nation, which is already reeling from a political crisis following the assassination of President last month. Haiti has been hit by a series of natural disasters in the past, including Hurricane Matthew in 2016. The deadliest was the 2010 earthquake, which killed more than 200,000 people and caused extreme damage to the country's infrastructure and economy, which it still, as I said, has not fully recovered from. So this is always the issue when it comes. I'm curious, why didn't that start a tsunami? I think it the quake actually might. Let me look that up because I might have been wrong when I said where the quake hit. Quake hit Haiti. So the quake actually, here we can pull it up on Google Maps. It actually hit the island itself. So since the epicenter, as you can see on this, can you see this? I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in and then do that. So this is actually, I was wrong. It wasn't off the coast of Haiti. So the epicenter was near Fons des Negres. I'm sure I'm butchering these French names. In Balu, in the Balu state. And so since it hit in that area, the spread out, and so the tsunami that might have happened went away from the island. But as stated in the article, they are experiencing torrential rains due to the constant state of, you guessed it, climate change and the tropical storms that always happen around this time of year. So I hope that answered that question, and thank you for making me correct myself. Maybe it's me. Appreciate it. All right. So now what's next? Well, what's next is, I'm sorry to say it, COVID. It's the pandemic that never ends. It keeps going on, my friends. Some people refuse to get vaccines, not knowing what it was, and they kept on dying because they didn't get them. So what we are seeing here is, oh, that was a bad joke. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Lamb Chop. Rest in peace. But what we're seeing here is that the United States has once again passed the threshold of 1,000 COVIDs a day in a single day. And we're seeing basically another wave of COVID deaths happening due to the rampant expansion of the Delta variant. And what is going on with the Delta variant is that the Delta variant is way more. What is my chat showing up? Way more contagious than previous variants. In fact, it's also impacting kids. And because the vaccine is very effective against it, but people are refusing to get it, it's causing more problems. The vaccine itself is somewhat controlling spread, but it can only control spread so much as things reopen, as people go back outside, as people go back inside to hang out with friends and family. And when you have roughly 40% of the population saying they are refusing and will never get the vaccine whatsoever, you're going to see an increase in death and destruction from this. Now, one of the things that this is actually causing is some of the economic instability that we're seeing here, because people that are afraid of getting COVID and dying, and dang, my nose itches, so allergy season. But as people are afraid of death and dying, and despite the fact that the economy is breaking up, there are people that are going to start doing less and less, and the economy will slow down because of it. Now, where are we seeing this up? Well, there's 8 states that make up over half of the U.S. cases of COVID-19 hospitalization, and the surge is among the unvaccinated, overwhelming healthcare workers. These states include Texas, where I'm living, including Austin. Even though Austin's a fairly liberal city, still only about 55% of Austin is vaccinated. And there's all sorts of issues and reasons why that is, but mainly it's because of misinformation and propaganda, as well as natural vaccine hesitancy because it's new. And as long as that continues, the pandemic is going to continue. Even if we see the vaccine wane in its effectiveness, which there's talk about it seeing less effectiveness, but not concrete yet. Even though it's less effective, it's still effective, and it's better than nothing. More than better than nothing. It's still more than 50% effective. So what does this mean? So where is this happening? Well, you guessed it. It's the South. And I hate to say it's the South, I wish it wasn't the South, but it's the South. And that isn't necessarily because of the soft culture. The Midwest and the Western Plains have similar culture to the South when it comes to the split between Democrats and Republicans, between conservative mentality and more liberal mentality, rural versus city divide. It's not these compacted cities that aren't seeing an uptick of vaccinations. It's these other areas. And the South was quicker to reopen than the rest of the country. And that includes the Bible Belt, which includes my home state of Indiana. So it could be predicting what's going to happen across the rest of the country in areas where vaccination rates are less than 60%. Since kids under 12 cannot be vaccinated yet, we still have a lot of states, even states with a high amount of vaccine uptake. We still see states that are below 60% of that, simply because the kids themselves can't be vaccinated. What does this mean? It means that Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nevada, and Texas are making up the 51% of the majority of hospitalizations. So in the past week, Florida has had more COVID cases than all 30 states with the lowest case rates combined. And Florida and Texas alone have accounted for nearly 40% of new hospitalizations across the country. So this is serious, people. This is very, very, very serious. Please get vaccinated. If you're in a school district that is banning mask mandates and you have children, send your kids to the school with a mask. If they get bullied for it, I'm sorry. Being bullied is better than getting long COVID. You should still do it. If you can, have your kid not go to school at all if they're under 12. If they're over 12, vaccinated, and don't have siblings under 12, going to school is the proper thing. Now, we know that kids do better with in-person learning, and we don't know when this is going to end. My guess is that kids will be able to be vaccinated by December. So what's another 4 months of not having in-person schooling? But if you decide that your kid is better off going to in-person school, and you do have the ability to do at-home learning for whatever reason, your school system provides it or whatever, then the best thing you can do is encourage your child to socially distance and wear a mask in school, even if all their friends and peers are not. That's my ask for the COVID case. Again, I'm going to do this every week, probably. This is the best advice that I can give. Now, there are concerns about the country going into another lockdown because of a new COVID-19 variant that is vaccine resistant, and that is the Lambda. And this is actually about Israel. So this is about Israel, not the United States. So officials in Israel are worried that a new strain of the Delta variant could force Israel in lockdowns as the country has reached a high number of active cases compared to 2 months ago, according to the Jerusalem Post. Israel has been a benchmark for vaccinations with one of the highest vaccination rates in the world. According to the recent data, 78% of those 12 years and up are fully vaccinated within the country, per Science magazine. The new strain, which originally came from South America and was identified in the United States, appears to be on the cusp of reaching Israel. If it reaches Israel, we will get the lockdowns that we so desperately want to avoid. Dr. Asher Shalom, director of the Health Ministry's Department of International Relations, said earlier this week, per the Jerusalem Post. So which variant is Israel worried about? It's unclear which variant Israel is worried about. However, it could be the Lambda variant, which we know is vaccine resistant. The Lambda variant is currently variant of interest on the World Health Organization's list of variants. The World Health Organization said the Lambda variant might be more resistant to antibodies created by the COVID-19 vaccine. And this is what's pushing Israel to get their elderly population a third booster shot. And the United States is also looking at getting people a third, not a third, I should say, a booster shot, since the first 2 shots were part of the original vaccine. Honestly, jab me 30,000 times. I don't care. To be completely frank and honest with everybody here, and this is going to get me canceled in some crowds, I'm sure. COVID is likely to not be eradicated, primarily because of the way the vaccines work and the people not getting vaccinated. And so since that is the case, booster shots are probably going to be, there is a high likelihood that booster shots are going to be a yearly thing. High likelihood that it's going to be, until at least a vaccine that covers everything is here. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine seems to be still at 60% effectiveness. So if we can get the vaccine up to 100% or 90% effectiveness, as they were prior to the decrease in effectiveness, maybe the body just forgets how to fight with it or something. We don't know exactly. But if we can get it up to that 80% range, 70-80% range, and permanently, then we're over it. People are going to go back to work, and they'll just deal with the sadly lots of deaths that are going to happen because of this, as the United States is showing with hospital rates going forward. So yes, that is my COVID coverage for tonight. Okay. So what else is in the news? Well, Gavin Newsom is still being recalled in California, and there was a 3 Republican debate that happened over the past week. And what we saw from that debate is a lot of people taking pop shots at Newsom. Newsom is saying that he's going to focus on vaccination rates and that sort of thing and avoid the debates. He also has encouraged his people to not vote in that race, and we'll read an article about that. I mean, I can actually read it. Like, oh no, I can't read it. I don't have access. Oh, why is? I'm gonna get. Maybe I can. There we go. All right. I don't have access to the San Francisco car. All right. Well, I can't see it. So I was going to read the article, but one of the people. So I'm not going to do that. So one of the people that are running in the race against Newsom is Larry Elder, the person that you've seen on PragerU, the person you've seen on Fox News, the guy that is like, we gotta take responsibility, black people. He's a black man. So whatever. And why is this in the news again? Why is he running? Why was he doing well? Why is he being blasted? Well, because of comments he said in the past, but not the distant past, the recent past, the present, and forever, because it is Larry Elder. So the Larry Elder conservative radio host, which I'm going to read on here for y'all up here right now, is So we're going to read this whole article. It's from the Los Angeles Times. Republicans hoping to replace Governor Gavin Newsom in the recall election focused their criticism on the Democratic governor, leading replacement candidate who both declined to join them at a Tuesday debate, which included a moment of spectacle in which one hopeful was served with a subpoena on stage. Oh, fun. Just 3 of the 46. Wow, 3 of 46 people. Jesus Christ, man. 46 candidates running to replace Newsom in the September 14th election participated in Tuesday's debate at Sacramento Guild Theater, though 7 were invited. Former San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer, Rancho Santa Fe, businessman John Cox, and Assemblyman Kevin Kyle of Rockland. Larry Elder, the conservative radio talk show host who has topped recent pollings, did not attend, nor did former Olympian and TV personality Caitlyn Jenner. A campaign spokesman said that she would be assessing wildfire damage in Plumas County this week instead, since Newsom declined to participate in the debate. Former U.S. Representative Doug Osee was slated to attend, but announced Tuesday he would drop out of the race after suffering a heart attack. Osee said he is expected to make a full recovery. As in a previous debate among Republicans this month, the candidates used the platform to rail against Newsom and the Democratic policy they say hurt Californians. But the event also marked the first time frontrunner Elder was targeted by the candidates before the debate stage. Faulconer blasted Elder for past derogatory remarks on women, including those in 2000 column from Capitalism magazine, which Elder said Democrats had an advantage over Republicans because they were supported by women, and women no less than men, about political issues, economics, and current events, showing that misogyny and white supremacy go hand in hand, and that is the thing. Now, this is why I say it was a little tongue-in-cheek. Larry Elder's a black man. He's clearly a misogynist saying this stuff. That's probably one of the primary reasons why he's a Republican. The former San Diego mayor called the comments bullshit, saying that he used such strong language as the son of a mother who worked as a secretary while going to night school, husband of a career woman, and a girl dad. I feel strongly about it, and I'm going to call it out, he said, calling Elder's remarks indefensible. Elder's previous remarks on eliminating minimum wage also drew scrutiny during the debate. During an interview with McClatchy's California-based editorial board this month, Elder said the ideal minimum wage is $0. So that's a very common thing among Republicans and libertarian ideas, is that, well, if you set a minimum wage, you're going to price people out of the labor market and they're not going to get hired and then having a job is better than having no job, even if you're working for slave wages. It's bullshit, but that's what they think. Kelly said he doesn't believe California should eliminate the minimum wage, but that the scale is currently way off and probably needs to vary a bit by region. Kyle added that the state unemployment system has been so poorly managed that it's become economically irrational to go back to your jobs, so small businesses can continue to suffer. No. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and call this because there's, let's see. Frankly, the minimum wage right now isn't an issue because people are getting paid buku bucks for doing things that used to get minimum wage because of a shortage of labor, Cox said. Certainly the federal government can set a minimum wage so there isn't sweatshops and things like that. That's fine. That's exactly the point of a minimum wage. If you're working at a fast food restaurant and you have to work 60 hours in order to like pay for your rent and food and everything, that's too much. But I'm going to go ahead and call it here for this bit to talk a little bit about what's going on with the labor market. Because it's a good segue. So let's see. Labor market. All right. Job openings are a record high. Why aren't people going back to work? Well, the primary reason why people aren't going back to work is twofold. One, a lot of people decided during the pandemic they're going to do career changes. A lot of people that were said, hey everybody, thank you for being here. Thank you for working. You're an essential worker. We're treated like absolute dog shit by everyone. Their boss, the people they told to put mask on, their customers who are getting all flustered and everything like that. And throughout the pandemic, so they said, "Fuck this, I'm out of here," and they don't want to necessarily work in retail anymore. Some people went back to school. Some people still do not have the childcare that they need, which is a really big reason for this. They still don't have the childcare they need in order to go back to work. And if you were making, just above minimum wage, let's say you had two people in your household, one of you, a mother, was making just above minimum wage, and that because of school, you're allowed to do that because somebody was taking care of your child for 8 hours or so of the day, and then you suddenly have to pay for childcare. Well, then your minimum wage or just over minimum wage job no longer makes sense because the majority of that money is going to go to the babysitter or the person that's taking care of your kid. So a lot of these people drop out of the workforce, and once you drop out of the workforce, it's very hard to get back in. Even during the pandemic, people look at gaps in employment as negative things. Unless you go back to school and you're from one industry to another, then that's understandable by employers to a degree. But if you're just going from one kind of minimum wage or above minimum wage job to another, not getting any skills, or you're just getting the skills but you still can't find that job yet, you're going to be looked at negatively even during the pandemic. So, but with that said, the U.S. labor market had 10.1 million job openings at the end of June, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, but 8.7 million workers were still unemployed in July. If there are so many more openings than job seekers, why are the unemployment workers left? Because of the reasons I just said. So every bucked economic trend and difficult question over the last 17 months, including why so many jobs aren't filled, has the same explanation: the pandemic. In this case, it is creating what economists call a search friction. And like the virus, this is a new variant we've never experienced before and don't fully understand. All markets have friction. A friction is anything that prevents a buyer and seller from transacting instantaneously. If a shopper has to go to multiple stores to find an item, comparison shops before purchasing, or doesn't live close to a store carrying the product, all those are examples of friction. In the labor market, where the shoppers are employers and the sellers are workers, a friction creates slower hiring and higher unemployment. The labor market has lots of frictions, but they aren't all necessarily negative. Healthy savings account that enables a worker to take time to find the right job rather than first job available is friction. The need to live near aging parents, which puts a geographic boundary on job searches, is a friction. So this is all the things that happen. If you moved back home because you couldn't afford your place in Austin, San Francisco, New York, or whatever, and you're helping take care of your parents during that, and you can't find the exact same job, you're going to spend more time looking for a job that was comparable to what you had than you would otherwise, because maybe the job market isn't the same in their location. So that's one reason here. Another reason, like I said, was the skills thing. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of weird stuff happening during the pandemic, and when conservatives say that it's because we're giving away too much money, we know that's not the case, because they ended their unemployment benefits first, and they are seeing still high job opening rates and high unemployment rates because of these kind of things. Texas ended its extra money a while ago. It stopped giving people money during, I think it was like 4 months ago or so at this point, and that sort of thing. There's people that are like in my position where I got laid off. Not fired, got laid off, and I went back to school and was able to not take the first job available and continue looking for work that would meet my needs. And that ability is for a lot of people now, partly because of the unemployment, partly because of severance packages, partly because of PPP loans and all that sort of stuff. So that's creating lag time before continuing. And then, as I said earlier, a lot of people are like, fuck this job, I don't need it, take this job and shove it up your ass, are now getting people to what is next up in the labor market: incentives to work. When leftists say, hey, you can't find the right people, just pay them more. Well, it seems like a lot of companies are at least trying to do something similar. So we're going to go ahead and read this article. Companies pull out all the stops to fill jobs in a market like we've never seen. This article first appeared in Morning Brief. Get the Morning Brief sent to you directly, Morning Box, blah, blah, blah. No skills, no degrees, you're hired. The hiring logjam showed some signs of easing in July, but companies in the trenches trying to match labor demand and supply still see a market that continues to be imbalanced and tilts heavily towards those looking for work. No matter what source you use right now, fundamentally there are 40% more jobs open today than there were before the pandemic began. That is ridiculous. So we have more jobs available right now for people than existed during the pandemic. What does that tell me? That tells me that a lot of people started opening businesses and a lot of people started expanding with the pandemic. Either PPP loans, low cost for borrowing, expanded selling of durable goods like cell phones and computers, laptops, screens, everything else led to people being able to hire more people in order to get more demand, etc. Some jobs coming back to the US, that sort of thing. As of the end of June, a record 10.1 million jobs were available in the US, but as ZipRecruiter said in its second quarter letter to shareholders, the labor market today is one of disequilibrium. What you're looking at right now is an unprecedented reality for job seekers, Siegel added. If you want work, there is an abundance of it. If you want to make some money, more money, there is an abundance of opportunity to find a job that pays you more. This is a job seekers market like we've never seen. Like it was a house sellers market like we've never seen. It's like demographics matter or something. Huh. Well, who would have thought that? Rest in peace. As of July report, there were 5.7 million fewer people employed than pre-pandemic peak of February 2020. And even with some Federal Reserve officials starting to talk more openly about the role retirements might play in preventing the labor market from reaching pre-COVID levels, there are still millions of would-be workers currently on the sidelines. Not to mention that we've lost 500,000 people out of the labor force due to COVID. Not everybody was 60 people 60 years and older made up a majority of that, like 60%. So we can say 300,000 people under the age of 60 died from COVID. 300,000 less people working. That's another thing that has to be taken into account here. That's another thing that Republicans aren't talking about. That's another thing that people aren't really talking about at all. That's another thing. The nation's expiration of pandemic unemployment benefits in September could be a catalyst to bring some folks back into the labor force. A return to school might also alleviate childcare-related absences from the labor market. And as we've chronicled time and time again, in this space, large employers with considerable resources continue to ramp up pay and other incentives to meet unemployment needs. This is the kicker. And to fill these positions, employers are dropping requirements left and right. When it is a seller's market, and in this case, the seller is the employee, it always benefits. It always benefits. Earlier this summer, we highlighted data from Indeed that showed a rise in the use of phrasing like hiring urgently, an uptick in job advertising sign-on bonuses or other incentives. These are dynamics that ZipRecruiter continues to see predominant on its platform as well. Just to give some perspective on wide of a net employers are casting right now, the number of jobs that require either a college degree or 5+ years of experience has fallen in half. In half. Yo, if you're young and you're looking to get into the job market to get paid big buku bucks, now is the time, son. Now is the time. The number of jobs that say no experience required stated in the job description is doubled. Employers are raising wages. They're offering signing bonuses and flexible schedules, he explained. If there is a secret weapon to attract the right job seeker to your job, no one seems to have created the code yet. So that is what we're seeing here. We are seeing a deluge of very weird combination of pandemic meets demographics. So the pandemic reduced the labor force by, we'll say, 300,000 minimum. The people pushed into early retirement because of the pandemic, because of job losses and everything else like that, took out people from the labor market. In addition to that, you're seeing a huge amount of people just now entering the labor force. The youngest millennial right now is, let's see, for me, I use 1996. And I can't math right now because I am apparently tired for some reason. But so 2021 minus 1996 is 25. I use 1996 as the cutoff. Some people go all the way to 2000. But the youngest millennial to me is 25 right now. Prime age working force for everybody. 24 to 54. What does that also mean? Those are the ages that people make the most money, enter the labor force, start family formation, buy housing, everything. This is the demographic bubble that people like Logan Matatashi, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Look him up on Facebook. He's based as fuck. Or Twitter or fucking Housing Wire, everything. He's all over the place. He does interviews all the time. Based dude, understands his shit when it comes to demographics. He's been talking about this for years. America's back, baby, is what his statement was, 5-6 years ago, because he saw this coming. And with this giant bubble of echo boomers, of millennials, of Gen Z entering the labor force and doing these things, this is prime time for expansion. Not only that, the United States government has done unprecedented levels of spending. Not seen ever, really, because it's even more spending that happened during the financial crisis. We learned that we should do more spending from the financial crisis, and that's what's going on. You're seeing bills being pushed for infrastructure, for investments in human capital. All these things together are more than likely, assuming the pandemic doesn't get worse. Knock on wood. Pray, please, no pandemic worsening. Manifest that we get all of this. It's going to be boom times, people. It's going to be boom times. I think it will. There will be a recession, but it's going to be boom times. And this is going to be a strange time. And if Biden can pull off the infrastructure bill and the human capital investment bill, and the stimulus bill, it's going to be a hallmark of his administration. And so you should be supportive of it, because even if you're a Republican, you're going to end up gaining from this as well, because of your business is going to get more business. You're going to be making more money. It's going to be like it's going to be what we remember the 90s to be, except without the tech bubble. So we're going to do another palate cleanser here with our News of the Weird segment. News of the Weird segment today is brought to you by the state of Massachusetts. Alligator spotted swimming in Massachusetts River. Now, if you know alligators and nature and that sort of thing, alligators don't really exist in Massachusetts, so this is pretty fucking weird. A Massachusetts man snapped a photo when he spotted something highly unusual swimming in the Connecticut River, an alligator. Joseph Madison of West Springs said he was walking next to the Connecticut River when he spotted the reptile. Oh my god, what the fuck? What? All right. People just, I guess that's what Google thinks I like. All right. Anyways, I noticed something different in the water and I looked down and it was an alligator, Madison told WGGB, WSHM. Madison said he has since spotted the alligator on multiple occasions and even brought some of his friends to look at the reptile. Followed up a few of my friends and they didn't believe me, so a few more came over and took a look at it. It was about 4 feet, Madison said. The alligator is believed to be an illegal pet that was abandoned by its owner when it grew to be too large. They're not a good spontaneous pet because they're cute when they're little, but as they grow, they get big, said Kevin McClurry, a reptile breeder and educator from New England Reptile Distributors. McCurley said the gator would not be able to survive in the Connecticut River once the temperature drops. The alligator will be fine this time of year, but we approached fall, things will start to get rough for it. Massachusetts does not allow private ownership of alligators except for educational and scientific research purposes. So this is a story of a person probably abandoning the alligator and not it coming up from Florida because it's getting too hot in Florida or somewhere else. And that kind of says a lot about what America can America, right? We want to own our tigers and exotic animals, and there's nothing you can tell us about it. And that's what this News of the Weird segment is about. Outlier. Hey, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Going to be finishing up soon, though. Hopefully you're not just joining us. So yeah, that was our News of the Weird segment. So the last thing that we're going to talk about is rank corruption within the U.S. government, especially among the congressional members. And what we are going to discuss today for the last news program here is Rand Paul discloses 16 months later wife's purchase of stock in company behind COVID-19 treatment. Dun, dun, dun. 16 months late, Senator Rand Paul, Republican from Kentucky, on Wednesday filed a disclosure within the Senate revealing that on February 26th of 2020, his wife, Kelly, purchased stock in Gilead Sciences, a company that produces an antiviral drug used in the treatment of COVID-19. So February of 2020, so right when the pandemic was, right when Congress was told about the pandemic, right before everything shut down, sus, dude, sus. Under the Stock Act, which prohibits members of Congress from using information not available to the public for private profit, the disclosure should have been filed within 45 days of the purchase. The WHO declared COVID-19 a pandemic on March 11th, 2020. That spring, the Justice Department launched an investigation into several senators who sold stock shortly before the pandemic declaration, which upended the financial industry and caused markets to crash worldwide. Gilead makes remdesivir, that thing that Trump got injected with. Yeah, come on, put it in my veins. Fucking testosterone, fucking steroids, bitch. An antiviral drug developed to treat hepatitis C that was also tested for use against infectious diseases. It was administered as part of former President Trump's treatment last October when he was hospitalized for COVID-19. Stock purchase and late filing raises questions about whether Paul and his family used information given to lawmakers about the coronavirus and the government's plans to fight it so they could make a profit. Professor James D. Cox of Duke University told the Post. The senator ought to have an explanation for the trade, and more importantly, why it took him almost a year and a half to discover it from his wife. It didn't. Don't let them lie to you. This is bullshit. It took a year and a half so they could profit as much as possible. They bought stock. They bought stock in the company. They probably already sold it. They pocketed the money, and they're just going to be like, too late now. No, they should be fined for every single fucking dollar that they made, and then some. This just proves that we, like, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is 100% right, that congressmen should not be legally able to buy individual stocks and bonds. They should be forced into index funds like the poor people that they represent. Yours truly owns a lot of index funds, a couple of stocks here and there, because I am blessed. And yeah, but they should not be allowed to do this, because if they're allowed to do this, this is what will happen every time. Paul's spokesman, Kesley Cooper, told the Post that the senator did not attend any confidential briefings about COVID-19. Bullshit. And after Kelly Paul's stock purchase, he filled out the proper reporting form, but didn't turn it in. Paul just recently found out that the form was never... Bullshit. Never transmitted, Cooper said, and after conferring with the Senate Ethics Committee, he filed the supplemental report and an annual disclosure on Wednesday. Kelly Paul made the stock purchase 2 days after a top WHO official said remdesivir may have real efficacy in treating COVID-19. According to Cooper, the purchase was between $1,000 and $15,000, and Kelly ended up losing money. Sure. This is, like I said, this is one of the things that I think Tucker Carlson actually agrees with that statement too. Him and his faux right populist. He's still got to keep the brand. So I'm pretty sure he supports getting rid of the Congress people's ability to buy individual stocks as well. But it's one of those weird instances where they're right. People shouldn't be allowed to people serving in Congress shouldn't just be allowed to buy stocks willy-nilly, and they should be required to either have it behind a blind trust or a similar thing to a 401k that Congress itself, not Congress, I'm sorry, that the Congressional Budget Office or some other third-party agency administers on their behalf, kind of similar to TSP, which is what military members get themselves. So we've been streaming for about 1 hour and 58 minutes. We covered a lot of ground today. Not everything that we wanted to cover. One thing that I guess I should hit on was that one more thing. We'll do one more thing. So, as people might know, this was breaking news while this afternoon, while it was prior to the newscast, was that there was a potential suicide bombing at the state capitol. Capitol Police arrested a man Thursday who claimed to have explosive in his truck after a tense 5-hour standoff, ending the immediate threat to a Capitol campus that is still reeling from deadly insurrection earlier this year. The suspect, who is identified as Floyd Reid Roseberry of North Carolina, was taken into custody without incident, according to U.S. Capitol Police Chief Tom Manager. Wow, okay. Police officials later said that a bomb was not found in the vehicle, but possible bomb-making materials were collected from the truck. This guy live casted this thing on like Facebook or something, saying the revolution will come, brothers. Take it to the Capitol. Get these Democrats out of here. The Lincoln standoff began Thursday morning when Roseberry allegedly drove his pickup truck onto the sidewalk in front of the Library of Congress, claiming to have bombs on the vehicle. It wasn't immediately clear whether Roseberry's vehicle did in fact contain explosives. Manager said the area would remain active for several hours as officials investigate whether the truck had explosive devices or other related weapons. Authorities gave it all clear at Cannon House office building around 4:45 p.m. local Eastern Standard Time. Manager said there is no indication Roseberry was acting with others, and law enforcement officials do not have reason to believe that there was other explosive devices in the city. The police chief assertions come after Roseberry said on social media earlier in the day that there were 4 additional explosive devices in the surrounding area without providing additional details. There was nothing that serious in Roseberry's criminal background, according to Manager, who said law enforcement officials were still trying to identify a motive. What? Okay. All right. I'm just going to end it here. So this guy This guy basically said in his live broadcast, I guess the police, when this article was published, didn't know this at the time, or maybe they're lying. I don't know. Probably they just didn't know. He believes in the big lie, and the big lie continues to encourage people to think that the United States is under a Biden dictatorship or a budding dictatorship that's going to force you to wear masks, convert your kids to anti-white propaganda, make them be fearful of climate change, and live in the soy cuckboy life of their dreams, where women can do everything. I'm sorry, Outlich. What's your question? I didn't see it. Streamlabs crowdsourced are breaking 2 hours ago. Oh, this is okay. So Outlich, I guess it didn't come through, or maybe you missed it. Essentially, what is going on? This is a Crowdsourced Politics News Roundup. We're about to wrap it up. So check the VOD. I do streaming for 2 hours from 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, roughly. And we just covered the news of the week every week at that time. So sorry about that, that you didn't see that. But anyways, as I was saying, so he's definitely the MAGA, definitely make America great again kind of person. Definitely a Democrats are evil sex cult designed to force you to get vaccinated to make you sterile, yada, 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 yada. And he was taken without incident because of the negotiations between the police and himself. And the negotiations happened rather than a full-out battle because they were worried about explosives, and that's what police are supposed to do, not just go and guns blazing. And so what we are seeing here is the continued aftermath of the big lie that is being still promoted by Trump and his acolytes against the American people, against democracy. And this is a thing that needs to be monitored because it's going to be with us for a long time. In fact, it's going to be brought up anytime Democrats are in power. And it has been anytime Democrats have been in power since Clinton, at least since Clinton. And it's just getting worse and worse. So pay attention to that. I do not be surprised if these incidences continue to happen and escalate to actual violence, and be on the lookout for that if you're in the DC metro area, because it is not a very slim possibility that's happening. It's more than slim possibility of it happening. But with that, everybody, I am sad to say that we are out of time. We know you liked what you heard because you stayed with us to the end, so go ahead and smash that like button for the algorithms. It really does help us out. If this was your first time joining the news roundup, hi, Anthony here, also known as Cypher. I am the host and moderator of the Crowdsourced Politics podcast. We are a podcast that's been around since 2019 or so that cover a host or a variety of issues. We do live shows like this news roundup that you're watching now, or you had just watched. And if you're wanting to come on the show, if you're wanting to get involved, if you're wanting to talk about politics, get involved in anything of this program, discuss with me, debate me, whatever, join the Discord, please. It's a good community. That's where we have most of the stuff. And follow me on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter for new happenings, everything where I share memes and whatever the hell I wanted to shout into the void, and sign up analysis, or at least as much analysis you can get on Twitter. We are going to be expanding this program. There is another program that we're adding to this where it will be at least monthly, called Cypher State, which will cover foreign affairs, foreign affairs magazine, foreign policy, and kind of news around the world, from kind of analysis that I have, my kind of own analysis. So yeah, thank you all so much for joining. We will be raiding tonight. We will raid. I gotta actually sign on to Twitch, figure out who I'm gonna raid. We will be raiding Hans of Hakir tonight. He's probably just vibing, and he's a good dude. He's probably playing some video games, chilling out after some drama, but he's good people, so we're gonna go ahead and give him the raid. And stick around. He's good people. You should support him. So yes. So yeah, go ahead and stick around for Hans. And as always, keep your head up through the political storm.
Shut up, Cleet!
What did he say?
He said that bitch ain't got no ketchup, and he's making fun of me.
What a loser.
Shut up, Cleet. Hey,
You
Cypher.
don't even own any ketchup.
Hey, Cypher, what's up, buddy? Thanks for the raid. I really appreciate it.
I like fries.
That's why we got it for you.